as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen on fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Dharma pujita kaitruvutra paramo nirmatsaranam satam vedyam vastuvam atravastu shivadam tapa trayon mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim Vaparer Ishwaraha Sadyohidi Avarudyate Tra Kriti Bihi Sususubis Dakshanat. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Nigama kalpatarur galitam phalam sukhamukad amrita dravya samyutam pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam muhur aho rasika bhuvi bhavakaha. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam. The mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, we're going to do verse number 18. I know, but there's so many points in it. Yeah, let's do it again. It's a very important verse. Eso vai Bhagavan Shakshat Adyo Narayana Puman Mohayan Mayaya Lokam Gudas Charati Rish Nisu. This Sri Krishna is no other than the inconceivable original personality of Godhead. He is the first Narayana, the supreme enjoyer. But he is moving amongst the descendants of King Vrishni, just like one of us, And he is bewildering us with his self-created energy. So when it says he is the first Narayana, he's because there are millions and millions of Narayanas on the millions and millions and trillions of Vaikuntha planets. So saying that he's the first Narayana is basically saying that Narayana is an expansion of Krishna. And that's very important to understand. The Sri Vaishnavas say that Krishna is an expansion of Narayana, which is not true. But Narayana is an expansion of Krishna. So, how do we know that? Well, we have these great Mahajan authorities, like Bhisma Pitamaha, who just said it, right here. And you have Brahma, who says it, Ishvara Parama Krishna, Satchitananda Vigraha, and Adir Govinda, Sarva Karana Karanam. There's no cause beyond Krishna. He is the cause of all causes. So, if Brahma says it, and Bhisma says it, and we can go down the list. Yamaraj says it, Prahlad Maharaj says it, and Dhruva Maharaj says it, and let's see, 1 second, I'll give that list. Mahajans. Fourth chapter, 16th verse. And Sukadev Goswami says so, Kapila Dev says so, the Kumaras say so, Narada says so, the Manus say so, and Yamaraj says so, Janaka says so, and Bali Maharaj says so. So, these are the great Mahajans, 12 Mahajans. If they all say the same thing, then we know for sure it's a fact. Where do they say it? Well, Narada says it in Srimad Bhagvatam, the previous chapter, 5th chapter. And Ashiva also says so in the Bhagavatam. And anyway, I have to, I'm still researching this, where they all say it. But definitely Bali Maharaj and Yamaraj also. Okay, so with all these authorities saying the same thing, and then we keep going. The Alvars, the Sri Vaishnavas, Acharyas, they also say Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then all the Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas say the same thing. And Sankaracharya says the same thing. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Mudamate. Vishnu Swami and Nimbarka Swami, they all say the same thing. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so, but for us today, Bhisma says it, Esavai Bhagavan Shakshat, Adyo Narayana Pumam. Okay, so the Vedic system of acquiring knowledge is the deductive process. Now this is very important. You have the deductive process, you have the inductive process. These are two pramanas, ways of proving something. So deductive process, you begin with an a priori truth, such as, all men are mortal. John is a man. Therefore, John is mortal. That's deductive. You start with a self-evident premise, and then you deduct from it. Then there's the inductive method. Inductive method is you perform many experiments and you try and recognize a pattern. And based on that pattern, you make a theory. And then you see how well your theory predicts things. Now, if it predicts only 10% of the time, it's, a theory. It's not a very strong theory. If it predicts 30% of the time, it's getting to be a stronger theory. If it predicts over 50% of the time, it is a scientific theory. It's still not absolute truth, but now it's being called a scientific theory. If it predicts something 100%, then that's a law, right? It's no longer a theory. That's just a general understanding. So, the Vedic system is based on acquiring knowledge by the deductive system. So, how do the materialists use the deductive system? They begin with a hunch, a guess. We think scorpions are born from paddy fields, from rice fields. Why? Because we see baby scorpions coming out of the paddy field once a year. But then if you experiment, you make a sterile paddy field, right? It's not out in nature anymore. You do it in the laboratory, and you're growing some rice in a laboratory. And you wait, and no scorpions come out, right? So now go back to the real paddy field, and you observe more carefully, and you see that the baby scorpions are coming out, let's say, late summer, but in early spring, you also see the mother scorpions going into the paddy field. Aha! That means they may be laying their eggs in the paddy field. And the paddy field, because as summer progresses, it ferments somewhat. It's warm. And there's a lot of nutrient base there, right? So, therefore, they're not born out of the paddy field, but they are nurtured in the paddy field. They're born from the eggs that the mother scorpion lays. But in the beginning, their theory was it's born from the paddy field. But after much more careful observation, they see that the mother scorpion is laying the eggs. So that theory is junk, right? Now, most theories that the scientists, begin with a hunch are junk. And some of them come out to be scientific theories. Scientific theory doesn't mean it's a law of nature or it's absolute truth. It just means that it has a certain degree of predictability. But the Vedic process is you begin with the a priori self-evident truths. What is a self-evident truth? You can't argue against it. Like, for example, every child has a mother and father. Can you argue against it? Can you say, oh, wait a minute, their children are born out of test tubes? But still, what do they put in the test tube to produce the child? The seed of the father and the nutrient base or the egg of the mother. So, although it seems as if there's no mother and father, there is, because you can't do it without the seed of the father and the egg of the mother. So, therefore, it's a self-evident truth. You can't argue against it, right? And if you begin to deduct from a self-evident truth, and you see that every deduction, every, let's say, everything that you can derive from that original premise is true, then it's absolute truth. Like, for example, you say, all men are mortal. Paramananda is a man. Therefore, Paramananda is mortal. He's eventually going to die. I'm going to die. We're all going to die eventually because we're mortal. So that is deduction. Okay. So the Vedic system of acquiring knowledge is the deductive process. You don't depend on experimentation and identifying a pattern, building up a model based on that pattern, and then trying to see how successful the predictability is based on that pattern. Okay, so the Vedic knowledge is received perfectly by cyclic succession from authorities. So the third way, the third pramana, or way of establishing if something is true or false, is called sabda pramana. Now there are many subcategories of deductive, inductive, and sabda, but those are the main three categories, and then there's some subcategories that come from them, such as Jnana Yoga, Raja Yoga, this thing, that thing. But those are the three main headings. So the Sabda Pramana, if you receive knowledge from a perfect authority, even though you're imperfect, you can still understand perfect knowledge, even though you're imperfect. So some people say, well, if you say we have imperfect senses and we make mistakes and we have a cheating propensity, how can we have perfect knowledge? You simply repeat what the perfect authority says, then you have perfect knowledge. If you change it in any way, then it's imperfect. So Sabda Pramana is the best way of establishing whether something is true or false. You simply repeat what the perfect authorities have said. And the most perfect authority is Krishna himself. And anyone who repeats Krishna's words is also an authority. So the Vedic knowledge is received perfectly by disciplic succession from authorities. Such knowledge is never dogmatic. Dogmatic means you have to accept it. You can't question it. Like if I tell you there are little green people on the moon, you have to accept it. You can't. You know. How do I know there are little green people on the moon? Well, I know it because my gun is bigger than your gun. That's how I know it. You know. So if you challenge me, I'll shoot you and you'll die, because my gun is bigger than your gun. So it's a bunch of nonsense, right? So dogma is different. That's why he says, the Vedic knowledge is received perfectly by disciplic succession from authorities. Such knowledge is never dogmatic, as ill-conceived by less intelligent persons. Krishna never says to Arjuna, you must accept this. He says, rather, in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he says, Ishtite jnanam akyatam guyataram maya vimrisyaitad asesena yatachchasi tatakuru. 18th chapter, 63rd verse. He says, thus I have explained to you knowledge still more confidential. Deliberate on this fully and then do what you wish to do. Yeah. Do what you wish to do. So he doesn't say, do it or you die. That's dogmatic, right? Do what you wish to do. I explained everything now. You can do it. And he also says, if you want me to explain it again, I'll do it. He asked him, have you understood? If you haven't understood, I'll explain it all over again. Yeah. Okay. So such knowledge is never dogmatic, as the ill-conceived by less intelligent persons. So less intelligent persons say, oh, religion is dogmatic. You know, you have to follow exactly what they say, otherwise you can't question it. No. You can question. But the way you question is you ask questions in a humble attitude. The way you argue in the Vedic circle, in Vedic, amongst Vedic authorities, is to ask questions. You don't say, well, I think. No, there's no such way of saying I think. You say, dear sir, dear Gurudev, you said this but I don't understand it exactly. Can you explain it some more? So that's the way Arjuna is questioning Krishna. He's not challenging him. He's asking him humbly. So the mother is the authority to verify the identity of the father. She is the authority for such confidential knowledge. Therefore, authority is not dogmatic. Well, if someone, like for example, it says, an example is given in the Vedas. The town was on the river. Now someone says, wait a minute, what does that mean, the town is on the river? Is it hovering in the sky above the river? Is it on one bank of the river? Is it on the other bank of the river? Is it on both banks of the river? Is it on an island in the middle of the river? What does it mean that the town is on the river? Well, you can analyze the grammar, you can use logic and reason, you can formulate all kinds of theories, but you'll never know for sure unless someone from that town comes and tells you. You'll never know for sure. So in the same way, the Sabda Pramana is the best Pramana. When an authority who has been there and seen everything, it comes and tells you. That's why it says, Tatvidi paripatena paripastena sevaya upadeksyami te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Just surrender unto the bona fide spiritual master with three attitudes: submissiveness, asking significant questions, and offering service. The self-realized soul can instruct you because he has seen the truth. Right? So one time I was on a morning walk with Prabhupada, and he was criticizing very severely the scientists. And I had just graduated college maybe some months before, and I was stunned, and I said to Prabhupada, I've never met anybody that's criticized the scientists like you have. I said, this is something I never imagined. Yeah, because, we go to college and we were taught that, science is everything, right? Science has all the answers. If it doesn't have the answer now, it'll have it tomorrow or next year or 50 years from now. So Prabhupada said, yes. He said, do you know why? I was like shocked. I said, no, I don't know why. That's why I'm asking. He said, and so he pointed his finger like this, and he said, because I know Krishna exists. I know this. I know this. I know this. He exists. Krishna exists. I know Krishna exists. And he repeated it 3 times. I know this. I know this. I know this. So, he said, and therefore I can speak even to the greatest scientists, because he knows for sure. Like if you have $1 million in the bank and someone says, oh, I don't believe it. But you know you have the money in the bank, right? So you're not intimidated by what they say. So when a scientist says, well, we don't believe in God. Well, you don't believe in God because you're ignorant. But I know God exists. I've seen God, or I've experienced God's presence, etc. So there's a difference there. And Prabhupada said, I know this, therefore I can challenge even the greatest scientists. So here we have an authority. Bhisma Pitamaha, Prabhupada says, therefore authority is not dogmatic. In the Bhagavad Gita, this truth is confirmed in the 4th chapter, 4.2. Rajavidya Rajaguyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyaksavagamam Dharmam Susukam Kartam Avyayam. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge. Right? Pavitram Idam Uttamam. Pavitram means that it's pure, or purest, and Uttamam means it's transcendental, it's above all tama, or ignorance. And it gives direct perception of self by realization. It is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and is joyfully performed. So he says, therefore, authority is not dogmatic. In the Bhagavad Gita, this truth is confirmed in the 4th chapter, Bhagavad Gita 4.2, and the perfect system of learning is to receive it from authority. So that's called Sabda Pramana. You're receiving knowledge from an authority. The very same system is accepted universally as truth, but only the false arguer speaks against it. Oh, there are many false arguers nowadays, so many of them. Even though some of our own devotees sometimes argue against the truth, They'll say, well, Prabhupada established the Ritvik philosophy, that we can take initiation directly from Prabhupada. And then someone said, well, I want to take initiation from Gorkshore Babaji. You can do it by the Ritvik system. It's a bunch of nonsense. There's no such thing. It's never been, never happened, and never will happen. It's all made up. People say, whoa, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur took sannyas initiation from his guru, who was already left his body. Yeah, but that was his guru, right? It's not that he said, well, I'm going to take sannyas from Rupa Goswami. It's ridiculous what they say. Right? For example, modern spacecraft fly in the sky, and when the scientist says that they travel to the other side of the moon, men believe these stories blindly because they have accepted the modern scientists as authorities. The authorities speak, and the people in general believe them. But in the case of Vedic truth, they have been taught not to believe. Even if they accept them, they give a different interpretation. Each and every man wants a direct perception of Vedic knowledge, but foolishly they deny it. This means that the misguided man can believe one authority, the scientist, but will reject the authority of the Vedas. The result is that people have degenerated. Yeah, why should we believe the scientists? They often lie. Why should we believe the politicians? They often lie. Just like right now, they're saying, well, in 2002, Colin Powell, the minister, I guess he was the Minister of Defense or something like that, of George W. Bush, he went to the United Nations with charts and statements and so forth, proving that there were weapons of mass destruction in Saddam Hussein's Iraq. He convinced the UN, he convinced so many people, and all the newspapers in the United States said, yes, there are weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Then Bush declared war on Iraq and Saddam Hussein, and they defeated Hussein and his army, I think it was 1 week, and they took over Iraq, occupied Iraq. And after occupying Iraq for so many years, they're still occupying Iraq, right? 2002, now it's 2020. How many years is that? It's like 18 years the United States has been in Iraq, right? They never found the weapons of mass destruction. They never found them. And now people realize, after some years, they realize the whole thing was not true. It was a hoax. Colin Powell made this big speech with maps and charts and this thing and that. The whole thing was made up. So now, today, Trump killed, they call him Salami now. Soleimani, but they call him Salami now, Mr. Salami. So they say that he was planning more and more destructive, let's say, attacks on America. That's why they had to take him out. But he's been planning attacks on America for the last 16 years. Why is it so different now that they had to take him out? So now they're saying, well, wait a minute, maybe this is what Colin Powell and Bush did back in 2002 and 2003. Maybe the whole thing's made up. How do we know he was attacking? So they asked Pompeo, Trump's Secretary of Defense or something. They asked him, can you tell us exactly what he was planning? He said, that's an irrelevant question. I'm not even going to answer it. It just happened Sunday. He said, that's an irrelevant question. I'm not going to answer that. So here you see that, there's a saying by a famous English politician. He said, the first victim of war is the truth. See? And it's a fact. You have to lie to go to war, usually, right? And that's why he said the first. I forget his name. It's been one of the books I wrote. But the first victim of war is the truth. Okay, so now it says here, the authorities speak, and the people in general believe them. But in the case of Vedic truths, they have been taught not to believe. Even if they accept them, they give a different interpretation. Each and every man wants a direct perception of Vedic knowledge, but foolishly they deny it. This means that the misguided man can believe one authority, the scientists, but will reject the authority of the Vedas. The result is that people have degenerated. So we'll stop right there. You see, there's a lot in this purport. And this is our dilemma today. And our kids are being taught not to believe the Vedas. They're being taught to believe the scientists and the politicians and all these nonsense people. And that's why I say it's a type of abuse of the children to send them to these public schools where they learn all this nonsense. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.